Welcome to a Real Ones edition of NBA Preview Palooza. This is Logan Murdock. I am with Raja Bell. We are here to tell you our 10 most important players of the 2021-2022 NBA season. Raja, are you ready to go?
I'm ready, man. I gave this a lot of thought, Logan. This admittedly not my favorite exercise, like rankings and so on and so forth. But I sat here last night. I had a glass of my favorite beverage. The kids were asleep. Threw on my reading glasses. And I went to work, dog, just letting you know.
Let's get right into it, man. I'm going to go into my first one, which is number 10 on my list. It's none other than Washington guard Bradley Beal. I think is a very important piece into the NBA. And the reason why I'm going to say that is we don't know what he's going to do. He could be a Washington Wizard throughout this season, or he could get traded. Am I wrong? Is this too high? What are you thinking about this one right now? What do you think about Bradley Beal so far, Raja?
Well, you know, I'm a huge fan of Bradley Beal. I think we should talk a little bit about the actual like name of this segment, right? Because it's important, and important can mean a lot of different things to you. And so I like where your mind's at with that, right? Because with my list, I kind of dealt with teams that I thought had a chance to win a championship, right? Those teams were the most important teams to me. And then I figured out players, you know, that fit into the scenario. So, but I love where your mind's at, because he could be a domino that would fall during the season via trade or something like that and completely shake up the landscape of the NBA. And in that regard, you know, that would be a hugely important piece in the NBA. So I like that. I like it a lot.
It's funny where you said that, because you went through its titles and championships. I think I did. My most important was storylines and what that means for the year of storylines. And I mean, there are some that have championship implications, but it's more storylines. But I really want to see where you went with this. Who did you go with your number 10?
Yeah, so my number 10 player on my list would be Jrue Holiday. Right. And I use Jrue Holiday because he's a fantastic player. The Milwaukee Bucks, coming off of an NBA championship, have two pieces that I think are they're comfortable in Milwaukee. They had no real hiccups in the playoffs, and they're a 1 and 2, Batman and Robin, if you will, right? I think Jrue Holiday, and I've said this before, could, if playing well and if comfortable and if finding his true niche in Milwaukee, could be kind of like the third of a big three. I really believe he's that good. He needs to continue to get comfy. He needs to stay aggressive. You know, he struggled in the playoffs. His field goal percentage was down, I don't know, and 3-point percentages were down almost 10%. And for Milwaukee to repeat, Jrue Holiday is going to be a huge piece. I know what I'm going to get out of Giannis. I'm pretty sure what I'm going to get out of Chris Middleton. And so I think Jrue Holiday is a very important cog in the wheel of them trying to get back and win another championship.
Now, Jrue Holiday is very interesting, right? Because he's not the sexiest name at all, right? He's not. But it's curious because when he got traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, it was at the behest of Giannis, and it was because we want to win a title. Are we coming into the space where, like, hey, we need players that more fit into the roster instead of splashy names? Do you think we've gotten to that as a league right now? Or we're getting to that point?
I definitely think we're trending that direction, but I do think Jrue Holiday falls into another category. Like, he's not just that. Jrue Holiday is a fantastic player.
Is he very solid to star player in your mind?
No,
not superstar, but very solid to superstar.
He's a star player. He's one of the best defenders in the league. You know, he's I don't know how many times he's made an all-star team, but he is he is really, really good. He is definitely not just a nice piece that fits on your roster. He falls into a category above that and a category below superstar.
Yeah. All right, let's go right into number 9. Number 9 for me is somebody that's really been in the news a lot lately. I'm going to go with Ben Simmons, who has kind of had a very weird summer. Not even kind of. He started off with his coach saying he doesn't know if he's going to be a championship level player for this team. And then there's this back and forth, this leverage pool between Rich Paul and the Sixers. Are we going to get a trade? Philly's asking for too much. And then in recent days, he's planning on joining the Sixers. Now, the reason why I think he's important is because we don't know what the implications are for the rest of the league. What if he gets traded to Portland for maybe CJ McCollum, maybe a Damian Lillard? What does that do for the Sixers? Or if he stays during this time, what does that mean for the locker room in Philadelphia? It's really fascinating with Ben Simmons and what he can actually do for this league and by extension the Sixers. And I'm curious to see what happens with that. Do you think that that's going to get resolved? What kind of way do you think it's going to get resolved if you have to guess?
Yeah, listen. If you asked me 2 weeks ago when we were on the pod, I told you Ben Simmons was firmly planted. His feet were planted in the sand. His stance was, I'll never play in Philly again. And then I hear that he's back in Philly, right? Like, and they're trying to work it out. Then I hear, although he's back in Philly, he still maintains he doesn't want to play. I have no idea. I really don't. I'm all over the place with this one. I think ultimately they figure out a way to move Ben Simmons. Whether that's now or they have to bring him back into the fold, restore some of his value, have him play a bit. I think the writing's on the wall long term for them with Ben. So I think it happens. I just don't know when.
Okay. So with that being said, who was your number 9?
Yeah, my number 9, as I looked around the league and tried to figure out who was going to be hugely important to a contending type of team. Well, Denver was an interesting team for me, right? You know, Denver was an interesting team because in the hierarchy, I have them in the top 10, top 12 teams in the NBA this year. Jamal Murray was initially who I thought was going to be my most important player, right? What he looked like coming off of injury. But as I thought about it, I'm going to say Michael Porter Jr. Yeah.
I knew you were going there. Yeah.
I'm going to say Michael Porter Jr. is my 9th most important player this year. Huge year last year, almost doubled his averages, 19 a game. You know, he was one of a handful of people that shot 50% from the field and 40% from 3 with a certain amount of attempts, like really, really good offensive player. In Jamal Murray's absence and kind of that unknown of when he'll come back, he's got to take another step. I mean, he got the bag, right? 5 years, $207 million extension. Good for you. But he's got to take another step, both offensively. And I think that is rounding out that kind of offensive repertoire. He was really good, but when I watched him at times, it looked like he was a catch and shoot guy. I was one, so I'm not throwing shade, but I think he's got more potential to continue to be a playmaker for them. Yeah. Jokic does so much of it, but he could take on a little bit of the responsibility. And where it's most important, and he made huge strides for them last year in this regard, is his defensive ability. I see him like a KD. Like, you're always going to look at his scoring and his ability to do that. But with his length and his athleticism and his versatility, he can really be one of those Swiss Army knives defensively. And he made huge strides from year 1 to year 2, and he's going to have to continue to do that. But he's going to be very important to whether they can stay afloat and kind of be one of those top 10 teams I'm talking about until Jamal gets back.
Okay, number 1, it'd be important to flag that Rob Mahoney has a great profile on Michael Porter Jr. on the Ringer site. Go check that out. Secondly, it's interesting where the Nuggets are in the Western Conference, right? Like, they could be the Utah Jazz of last year where, hey, they play really well, but they might not figure it out in the postseason. Or if Michael Porter Jr. becomes like a 25 point per game scorer and just takes on that role, it's like, I'm that dude, they could actually be a factor. So that's going to be fun to watch. Okay, so I'm going to go with my number 8 most important player, and that is LeBron James. It might seem like he's a bit high on this list, but there's a lot more interesting guys, I think. But LeBron has to be on this list, and that's because, and it's all strictly, how is he going to do for as old as he is? How is he going to be able to stay healthy? Is he going to be able to carry this team, this Lakers team, where you have kind of question marks, quite frankly, when you have Carmelo Anthony? How is he going to fit? How is Russell Westbrook going to fit? Is AD going to be locked in for 82 games? Is he going to be healthy for 82 games? And that puts a lot of onus on LeBron. So I'm going LeBron number 8. And who you got, Raj?
I've got no beef with that. Again, staying in the Western Conference, looking at the standings, looking at the premier player on this team and his ascension into, you know, one of the best players in the league, Luka Doncic, right? And the Mavericks. And them being looked at to take that next step, right? They were 5th in the West last year. Take that next step into the limelight. The important player and most important player on that team, aside from Luka, falls into my number 8 spot, and that's KRISTAPS Porzingis.
Oh, you're in a bag right now, Raja. You're
I'm in my
bag
bag right now. Thank you, man. I felt it last night. I told you I was on one.
Yeah. Even how you're talking, you came up to. I thought you were going Luka, and then you were like, "Wait a second, that was a good job, man."
No. Yes, KRISTAPS. Thank you. I appreciate it. Can he stay healthy, Logan?
Yeah,
that's been the question since he came into the league. He was his healthiest his first year in the league, earning him, the unicorn title, right? And injuries have derailed that. But they're going to need that in Dallas. Luka needs a true number 2. He needs a guy that can hold him down. As brilliant as he is, he needs another guy that can create, make shots. You can give him the ball and he can get a bucket. KRISTAPS was better last year when he played on the post. He shot less threes per game than he had in years past. Field goal percentages, reflected that. He's a 20-9 guy, Logan. Like those are numbers. And Luka and the Mavs, if they're hoping to take that next step into, into the upper echelon teams in the NBA, he is going to need a sidekick. KRISTAPS, can you stay healthy?
Yes. I'm going to go with number 7. I'm going to go with Dame Lillard, especially in terms of storylines, because we already know how he has had some discontentment with the Portland front office, and at least has he. Has had people thinking, is he gonna across the trade? Is he going to leave? Is he going to stick with Portland right now? And if he sticks with Portland, by and large, Portland's gonna be who they're gonna be. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna are they better than the Warriors? Are they better than the Nuggets? Are they better than are they better than the Lakers? No. Are they better than the Clippers? I don't know. They are who they are at this point. And I got to wonder, if they are who they are, does Dame say, no, it's time to trade me? And does he get traded to Philly? Does he get traded to another team? There's a lot of consequential things that can happen with Damian Lillard this year, and I think that it's pretty important, honestly.
It's a fantastic call, and I love the way we've approached it from 2 different sides, right? Like, I love it for a storyline. I mean, I could make an argument that Dame could be higher on your list because he's that. I mean, you talked about Bradley Beal moving, and I said if that domino fell via trade, it would shake up the landscape of the NBA. I mean, say that about Dame and then just put a couple pluses behind it, right? Because if he moves to a team, we're talking about, craziness. So I like it. I actually went with finals participant, near and dear to my heart team, Phoenix Suns. And I thought about it. I'm like, Devin Booker, man, taking that next step into superstardom. And I was like, no, I think he's going to do that. I know what I'm going to get out of him. Chris Paul, it's, but you're going to have to scale him back a little bit this year, right, as he continues to age. DeAndre Ayton is the most important. He is number 7 on my list. He's number 7 on my list, all right? Last year, he shot 62% from the field, all right? Showed signs of getting better offensively. In the playoffs, he was even better than that. I don't know what he's done in the offseason, but if he could take that next step into bona fide offensive weapon for them at times and carry some of the load that Chris Paul's naturally going to have to give up in terms of scoring.
Sure.
That's going to be very important to Devin Booker and his ability to do what he'd like to do offensively, so all eyes aren't always locked in on him, and the Suns' ability, as a team. Again, and it's a trend with me, biggest area for him, he's got to take a step into the realm of all NBA defensive team. Like, he's got to be in that conversation for defensive. He showed it in the playoffs. He's got the ability to do it. The Suns are a defensive, minded team. He's got to be in the conversation for all NBA first team defense.
And then also has to be a two-way player, to your point, because if he's going to be all defense, he has to score too to alleviate that burden on Chris Paul.
Absolutely.
Now, my number 6, I'm going into your vein, Raj. I'm going into your bag right now. It's my first non-superstar of this bunch, and that is one James Wiseman of the Golden State Warriors is my number 6. And the reason why is when we talk about the Warriors, we talk about Steph Curry, we talk about what's going to happen with Klay Thompson. Does that put them over the top as a championship contender? I say no. I say what puts them over the top, if it makes them a championship contender, is the continued maturation of James Wiseman. He has to take a step. Now, there has been whispers around the Warriors organization of, maybe he is a year away. He's like, one more year. Just give him one more year and he's going to be there. Now, the Warriors need him to be right away if they're going to figure this thing out. And if he turns into David Robinson 2.0, then not only are the Warriors going to be great, but there's going to be a lot of shade taken off of him. There's a lot of people like bus talk in his rookie season, which I just found really ridiculous, but there's a lot of that talk going around. And if he could become not a superstar at this time during the season, but at least a solid 2-star role and take a leap, it could be really great for the Golden State Warriors. So number 6, James Wiseman. Who's your number 6, Raja?
I love James Wiseman. It's a great call. Number 6 for me is going to be Anthony Davis.
Okay, we knew this was coming. We knew this was coming.
It's inevitable, right?
Coming.
AD is number 6 for me. The Lakers are one of my 2 favorite teams to win a championship. And Anthony Davis is a huge, huge part of that. They have to continue the process of being able to transfer some of the responsibility, if you will, for winning from LeBron to AD. I mean, LeBron is phenomenal. I'm the biggest fan out there, but age is what it is. AD's got to take some of that on himself. Now, I know he was injured a lot last year, Logan. I know that. He only played in 36 games, but let me just tell you this. I had to look it up to convince myself. Last year was his lowest points per game since his second year in the league. It was his lowest rebounds per game ever. He only shot 26% from the 3 and 49% from the field overall, which is his lowest ever. Also, his lowest blocks per game ever. That's not a good trend. Now, I preface it by saying he was injured. So hopefully that had something to do with it. He is going to be hugely important and must play better, all right, because LeBron has to continue transferring some of that responsibility to AD.
Yes, I agree with you. I will keep my AD take to myself until he comes up on my list. But I agree with you on a lot of those things. Number 5 for me, you referenced him a little bit. Luka Doncic is my number 5 because let's talk about the summer that he had. They fired somebody that he was at odds with. It's really his show. They got the coach that he wanted that is supposed to be, and Jason Kidd is supposed to unlock another level in him. Now, I don't know what that is because I think that Luka Doncic by himself makes the Mavericks at least number 7 in the Western Conference. That's how good he is. But he finally has the team in his image, and if this works out for him, it's very consequential for him. If it doesn't work out for him, that could mean grave things for the Dallas Mavericks. So number 5, Luka Doncic for me. What do you think, Raja? Who you got for number 5?
I love it. I think I know what I'm going to get out of Luka, but you are right. I like that pick a lot. Number 5 for me, you've already talked about. It's Kyrie Irving. Here's the deal. I could have put him higher on the list, could have put him lower on the list. I feel very confident in Kevin Durant and James Harden being able to win a ton of games without Kyrie, probably even a championship. But boy, if they had a talent like Kyrie and everything was good, then for me, it's a no-brainer, right? Even after I just said I love LeBron and I wouldn't bet against him. If those 3 are together and healthy, I think it's really hard to bet against them. So it's not about on the court for Kyrie. It's twofold. One, like, does the saga ever wind up playing out and he either winds up back in the fold with Brooklyn or do they have to move him and then that becomes a storyline kind of a la your list. But for mine, it would be whether they get him back or not and them going from a favorite of mine to the clear-cut favorite because the 3 of them together is just obnoxious.
You know what's hilarious? You want to know what's hilarious?
Huh.
That is my number 4, so we can continue this conversation. Kyrie Irving, I believe, is maybe not the most important player in the league, but he's definitely the most consequential for the Brooklyn Nets, in my opinion, because all the variance in how he is talking, how he is or not talking with the vaccinations, with all these things. There's some things that that Kyrie gets praised for in terms of not talking to the media, and not talking to his teammates, and going MIA. We've both heard these things, but the thing that is unequivocal, it's starting to get under the Brooklyn Nets skin right now. It's not one of those things where they're not supporting him as hard as they have been supporting him in the past. It's getting a little old right now. You got Sean Marks is just really he was asked by the New York Times, is this because of the vaccination? And he says, well, we wouldn't be having this whole discussion if it wasn't for the vaccination. And you talk about a player trying to play half of the games, a superstar player just outwardly trying to play half of his team's games. That doesn't make sense. In terms of camaraderie and continuity and and chemistry. It does not make sense. And it's getting to the point where Kyrie is just letting his team down about right, where, no matter how long he's gone, as long as he is gone, Kevin's going to have to answer for Kyrie. James Harden's going to have to answer for Kyrie. Your man Steve Nash is going to have to answer for Kyrie. It's kind of getting old, and it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to make a decision. Do we just cut bait with him altogether? Is that going to make us a net positive team, or are we going to be better because he's on the floor? It shouldn't be this way with somebody as talented as Kyrie Irving, but this is where we're at. So number 4 for me is Kyrie Irving, man.
Yeah, I can't really argue with anything you said there. I would just add to it. It's not even the regular season yet. Do you know what I'm saying?
He hasn't even practiced since they played in San Diego, which was the first week of the season, dude.
And we're talking about the exhaustion from teammates and the team and just having to deal with it. We're not even in the regular season yet. And so for all of those reasons. This is a guy
that by and large the locker room has liked, right? The other players have liked Kyrie, and we've all seen this. But when those guys are like, yo, bro, I got to answer questions for you to get jabbed up. Like, what are we doing?
The question now, the question is, can you trust him now? Like, if you're another team looking to trade for him, like, can you trust that he's? And I think it's a fair question. I don't know. And as far as the vaccine go, look, man, I have my thoughts on the vaccine. I've made them clear. Like but the bottom line is, when you work for an employer who says that this is what it is, or you don't get to, you have the choice. Hey, but don't expect to make your call and then be able to do what you want to do if it is not in accordance with what you're supposed to do to be able to work for said company.
Now, we have a whole episode about COVID-19 vaccinations. You could check that out on another thing. That I don't even want to go into that right now. What I will say is, though, it's not a matter of, at this point, I'm not even talking about health right now. For this team, it's a matter of like, are you with us or not? Because here, the guidelines are here. If you get jabbed up, you're going to be on the team. If you don't, you're not going to play. And we want you to play with us. It's literally, are you going to be our teammate or not?
You've made a choice. You've made your choice.
Yes.
So far, you've made your choice. And that's what it is. It's to not be a part of that championship quest. And for that reason, again, I think it's going to be hard for people, even potential trade partners, to trust that's what his focus is. All right. So I want to spend too much time on Kyrie. I'm going to do that.
Who's your number 4? Who is your number 4?
Number 4. All right. So this team and this player have a real good opportunity this year. Great opportunity to do something that's never been done in their city. They are also near and dear to my heart. It's the Utah Jazz. All right. Number 1 in the league last year through the regular season. Now, they lost to the Clippers. What was that? Was the second round last year? They beat Memphis. Lost to the Clippers, albeit without Mike Conley. This player has to continue taking the next step. We've talked about him a lot. It's Donovan Mitchell. All right? He is my 4th most important player. He took another step last year into superstardom. I mean, he's burgeoning on it, bro. He is like right there on the precipice.
He can see it right now.
You can taste it damn near.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Averages up across the board last year. Points per game, 26.4 most in career. 5.5 assists most in a career. 38% from 3, which is really cool to see him doing with the most attempts per game in his career high. All right? And what he did in the playoffs was top that. He was 34 a game in the playoffs. That's superstar stuff. He has to continue to take that next step into superstardom to elevate that franchise. Now, here's what I do know. Having Dwayne Wade around the organization as part of that, one of the best 2 guards of all time, is only going to help in that regard. As someone who can kind of, mentor, if you will, or just be a sounding board, someone to bounce stuff back and forth off of. I think it's going to be huge for Donovan Mitchell and therefore the Jazz. But he is my 4th most important player.
All right. Now I'm going to go to number 3. That's a good pick. My number 3 most important player is someone that's near and dear to your heart, Raja Bell. And that is one Russell Westbrook of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I have seen him a lot in this preseason, and he has not played well at all. He's had like his turnovers.
Let us live, bro. We'll be all right, bro. Let us live.
I know. Westbrook Island is just shaky right now. The stock is plummeting. Jordan Poole is over here putting him in a spin cycle in preseason games. We will see what happens, okay? But Russell Westbrook is consequential because you have so many resources tied to him right now, right? And you already with Russell Westbrook, you had the choice between him and Buddy Hield, and you chose Russell Westbrook, and this is who you are. This is LeBron's guy. He is one of those guys that has been a superstar in this league, but kind of has to get demoted to a role right now, and he hasn't even playing really well in this role so far, and he has to get, we'll see what happens, but Russell Westbrook is the reason, could be the reason they win a championship. It could be the reason that the Lakers crash and burn this season. This is what it is.
Oh, bro. I'm not going to take exception. It's your list. I'm not going to take exception.
Okay. Who's your number 3?
What I will say is what I've said on this pod before. I will have absolutely no Russ slander on this pod.
You're going to come see me, huh?
Unapologetically. There's no Russ slander allowed. All right. Let me go to number 3. And this is near and dear to your heart. It's going to be the Golden State Warriors, but it's not going to be James Wiseman. It is going to be Klay Thompson. It's going to be Klay Thompson because I do believe James Wiseman's a year away. But man, if you get a healthy Klay Thompson back, 85 to 90% of himself, it changes the conversation around the Golden State Warriors and what they can ultimately be this year. It changes it from like, hey man, tough game, bro. It's going to be a tough out. We got to, we got Steph and we got to do, changes it from that to like, damn, bro, like this team could really be something. Now, what ultimately, I don't know. But with Klay in the mix and having that two-headed monster of scoring and shooting, and the emergence of the Jordan Pooles, James Wiseman a year ahead of schedule, Juan Toscano Anderson. I mean, I'm telling you, and I've said this before, you ain't gonna want to see them in the playoffs if Klay Thompson is right. Trust that.
And here's what they have that they haven't had lately. They have shooting. They have Otto Porter. Bielitsa is good. I think my only concern is their front court. Really good team. I like what they got going right now. I'm going to go into number 2, which is someone that you already referenced, and that is Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, 100%, is the guy that I've been waiting for the Shaq 99-2000 season out of AD, where it's just like you're unquestionably the MVP. You are the best player in the league for this year. I think I said that I made Anthony Davis last year my MVP pick, and now it's like, and he just crashed and burned that whole time. I want him to just have that season because everybody will be great if he just makes that season happen, right? Everybody in Los Angeles and La La Land, they'll get a championship if he does that. If he plays like an MVP and stays healthy, the Lakers are unquestionably the favorites to win this title, man. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. If he plays the way he's supposed to play, I don't think anybody can stop the Los Angeles Lakers, and that is including the Brooklyn Nets. So, AD, my number 2. Who's your number 2?
My number 2, and you've talked about him before, is Ben Simmons. Look, Philadelphia was the number 1 team in the East last year. It was Doc's first year. Joel Embiid looked fantastic. And for all the shade we throw at Ben Simmons for what happened in the playoffs, all he did was go out there and average 14-7 and 7. Again, I'm going to tell you again, that's not easy. And that falls in a rare air of people who have done that at his age. You throw in the triple doubles that he's got at his age, and he's even in rarer air. Now, there are flaws in his game offensively, but he is one of the best and most versatile defenders in the NBA. Yeah. For a team that hangs their hat on defense, number 2 in the league in defensive efficiency last year, that is a huge Swiss Army knife, no pun intended. Like he is a huge piece of what they do defensively. Not to mention what happens if he should get traded and what that does to the landscape of the league or not. The Sixers, with Ben Simmons and Joel on the court, right, when they both play, 67% winning percentage. Without one or the other, it's down to 49. So we can talk about whether or not they play well together or whether they fit together or not. But the bottom line is they win a lot more games when the two of those dudes are on the court. Okay, so for that reason, for a team that is right there also and could be in the conversation for winning a championship, I mean, that's where we're talking about. You win the Eastern Conference, you're in that conversation. Doc in year 2, Joel Embiid, he's a huge piece of that. If they're missing him, then you're backsliding as a franchise in terms of what you're going to be able to do this year.
I like that. We'll see what happens, man, because here's the thing. The Sixers have got to get this right. Now, if it's because we already know Ben Simmons has a lot of NBA left in him. He has a lot of basketball to play, but there's only we know about windows in this league, and the Sixers have an opportunity to be in that mix, and they have to get this right, whether trading him or keeping him in the organization. It's going to be interesting. Okay, so my number 1. And this might be this is the superstariest of storylines right now. I'm going to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's my number 1 most important player in the league, and the reason being, he's so great. And he is on one of the teams that, while deep, does not have another generational talent next to him. He just doesn't. And in an age of super teams, you kind of need your super duper star to stay healthy when that happens. So Giannis has stayed healthy for the most part, but has gotten injured in the postseason, had a few scares. He has to be healthy if the Bucks have any shot of repeating. And if he ever got hurt, the reverberations around the league are immense. Or if he doesn't play well, the Bucks' chances are down the drain. So I'm going to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo as my number one important player in the league. Who is your most important player in the league?
It's a great pick. Shout out to Giannis. Great pick. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, but he will play well. Let me just tell you that. That's happening. And for very similar reasons, and because they're my favorite to win a championship, there could only be one number one most important player in the NBA. It's unequivocally LeBron James.
Okay.
If LeBron James gets hurt, I'm not even going to dare say not play well. It's just he's at an age now where you have to worry about, what type of nagging injuries pop up. But if he should not be available to the Lakers, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Anthony Davis, nah. Very talented, super talented. It's not happening.
But we've also seen with Anthony Davis, even when he does put up MVP type numbers and he's the lone guy,
it'll
get you like 47 wins, maybe. That's what it gets you.
We're not talking championship. Like La La Land, biggest market, most storied franchise, favorite to win it again, loaded.
Raj's favorite hotel in the world, the Lowe's in Santa Monica.
If the king isn't healthy and LeBron can't do what he does on the court, they have no shot at winning a championship. And so he is the most important player in the NBA again.
I think also with LeBron, I think this is the year you might have to just save him from himself, man. Like, sit your ass down. It's time to, you got to load manage. You might have to play 30 minutes in a game and we might lose some games. But if you're healthy, we're good. So
LeBron's okay with that. No,
Okay.
he is. Like, I've dealt with him in that regard. Like, I've had those conversations with him. He's okay with that. So yes, you need to, if you're the Lakers, plan that out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that has been our Real Ones NBA Preview Palooza. Top 10 most important players in the NBA. We will check you out soon. Holla.